Hello everyone, welcome back to this course. So far, we have learned some of the few fundamentals of Express.js web framework, which is a part of the Node.js ecosystem. We have learned some very essential and important concepts that help us understand the fundamentals of Express.js framework, or rather any other web application framework. So far we have learned about how to create middlewares, how to create routes, how to create controllers, how to do error handling, and a lot of that. In addition to that, we have already seen that how an Express.js application can connect to an external database and how we can query the tables, can insert data, can perform CRUD operations, and all that. Now it is time to put all these concepts that we have learned together and create something meaningful out of it. And today, or from today's lectures onwards, we are going to be starting with a new project, and that project is going to be based on a job portal application. So this is a portal that we will try to build as part of this course, as the project of this particular course, where we will be going over all the backend components that are involved while building this project. Firstly, we shall be seeing that how the backend of such a system can be built. So we will be, thinking about all the features and specifications that this job portal project will come with. And finally, after building the complete backend implementations by integrating the database, the tables, whatever we will require for this project, we shall move on to the front end part. Firstly, of course, we shall be learning the fundamentals of front end in web applications with the help of React.js. And later on, we shall move on to completing this implementation of job portal project in React.js for the front end. So looking at all the features that we intend to add in this particular project, since we have to write the backend for this application first, so let us just take a quick look at what all things this job portal has to offer. So the features are already listed down here on this Google document. So you could see that this portal is going to be used by a variety of users. There are mainly two roles that we are looking at. One is going to be the candidate, who are going to be the job seekers. The other role that we are looking at is going to be the recruiter, whoever are going to be posting the vacancies that their respective organizations have. So the application is going to allow the registrations as well as signing in or the logging in part for both of these roles, for the candidates as well as for the recruiters. In addition to the sign up and the login feature, there are going to be multiple things that both roles of the users will be able to do on this particular application. So this application intends to provide a dashboard for both roles of user, depending upon what their objective or purpose of visiting this application is. For example, a recruiter is going to be visiting such an application in case he or she wants to post a job application that is based on a vacancy in his or her organization. Probably wants to take a look at the applications that are received, or trying to shortlist the applications that are received for a particular vacancy that was posted before. And on the other hand, a candidate will look to apply to various vacancies or the job openings that are posted by the recruiters here in this app, and they shall be notified with the real-time updates about the current status of their application based on the actions that are performed by the recruiters. So this is a overall feature view, what this job portal project is going to be offering. Now, of course, as we will move forward while building this project, we shall be looking at each and every feature in detail when the time for that particular feature, to be built comes in. And for now, I am going to be taking you through of all the entities, or so to speak, the database tables that we will require in order to create such a project. Okay, so looking at the database entities that we have here, we are going to be working with 5 different tables. One is going to be for users, and the 2 supporting tables for users are going to be recruiter details and the candidate details. Now, what happens is, as we have already mentioned, that there are going to be 2 roles that we are looking at, who are going to be the primary users of this particular application. Those are the recruiter and candidate. So we are going to be using users as a table in order to store all the common attributes that both of these roles have. This common set of attributes could include probably the name, probably the last name, and some very common things that any role can actually have in common with others. Whereas any role specific detail is going to be stored in a different table. The simple reason for doing that is if we intend to store everything into a single table, then this table will be expanded horizontally. And we will need to keep the columns respective to a particular role, in the users table. And if you try to create a user with a different role, then the values for the columns that are intended not to be used for that particular role will have to be kept as null. So generally, what we do is we can actually break it down and we can store role specific details in a different table. So users will intend to store all the common information, probably the name, the password, the email that they will use in order to use this particular platform, and the specific details like the company that the recruiter is trying to hire for, probably the headcount or other things that are more relevant for a recruiter. Whereas looking at the candidate detail, this might have the number of years of experience that the candidate holds, the skills, the expertise that the candidate has, probably the domains or the roles that the candidate is currently looking for, etc. So these are some specific information that we intend to store in a role specific table. Whereas we will be making use of two additional tables as part of the system. One is going to be the job postings. Job postings is a table specifically would be populated by the role of recruiters who would post the vacancies or the roles whatever are open in their respective organizations, and each job posting will come with its own specification. It may have the number of vacancies that this role actually has, the skills that this role requires, the number of years of experience, and many other things, right? This is what the job posting table is going to offer. And the last table that we are going to be looking at is going to be the job applications table. So job applications is going to contain entries based on the candidate's action. So once a recruiter is done posting the vacancies or the job postings on this portal, the candidates will be able to apply to those postings. And whenever any candidate applies, new object or a new row in this job applications table will actually be created. Looking at the relationships that each of this table is going to have, with other table in the same database. So users, there is currently no relationship, but of course, definitely there are going to be other tables which will be directly connected to the users, specifically the recruiter and the candidate details. As you know, that we are trying to put or keep the common details of all the users in the users table. So that is why users table is going to share a one-to-one relationship with recruiter details and the candidate details. In case a new user of a role recruiter is created or is added into the system, then a row in the users table will definitely be created, but an additional row in the recruiter details table will also be created. And a foreign key will be added in the recruiter's specific details table in order to help the relationship work directly with the users. The same thing goes with the candidate specific details table, where any new candidate that signs up on this particular application or the system, a row in the users as well as the candidate specific details table will be added. So that is why both the recruiter specific details and the candidate specific details will share a one-to-one relationship with the user entity or table. Coming on to the next table, job postings. This is going to hold a one-to-many relationship with user, where the one part will be kept by the users and many part will be kept by the job posting, because a single recruiter should be able to post multiple vacancies. So that is why a user will be able to create multiple job postings. Similarly, we have this job applications table, which is going to share a many-to-many relationship between job postings and the users. Now, look at it this way, that one user can apply to multiple positions, multiple vacancies, multiple postings, and a single posting could also be applied by multiple users. So that is why we are going to be having a many-to-many relationship. So this is an additional table that exists as a many-to-many relationship product of these two tables. Okay. there are going to be various types of APIs that we will be working upon when we actually begin the development for this project. But right now, I am going to be skipping this uh, specific feature part. And today, I am just going to walk you over the project structure that we have created for building this kind of system or application. So let's head to our VS Code window. Okay, so this is our VS Code window, and as you can see, the project name is Job Portal here. I have already created a project here, a Node.js project. I have created it the same way, the way we had created, projects even in the previous lectures. We use npm command in order to initiate a new Node.js project. It gives us this package.json file. And after that, we have integrated TypeScript in it. And that is why we are having this tsconfig.json file. This is going to have the same set of configuration that we have been using so far in this course. There might be one or two configurations that might change from one lecture to another, but more or less this configuration looks the same. The out directory here is going to be built. Maybe in some other lectures, this out directory may correspond to a folder called dist. But currently, we follow directory of build in case of backend projects. Now, talking about all the dependencies that we require for this particular project. So we shall be looking at this dependency section here. So we are going to be using bcrypt here because the users that will come here on this application, they will sign up with the help of a password. And that password needs to be stored in an encrypted form so that even in case of a database leak, any hacker will not be able to get access or get direct access to the passwords that are being used by the users of this application. So we are going to be using bcrypt for encrypting the passwords of the user. CORS will be used in order to protect our backend APIs to or restrict the access of our backend APIs to certain origins. .env is a package that we shall use in order to read the environment variables, and we shall be creating different environment files for different types of environment, because generally when development happens, it happens at multiple environments or multiple stages. Let's say few of the organizations might want to have a staging environment in place, might be having a dev environment in place. Then after the dev or staging environment, or rather both environments, then comes the pre-prod environment, and finally we have the prod environment. And each of this configuration is going to have its own set of resource. Let's say the database that you are using for staging environment is completely different from the pre-prod environment. So that is why even the credentials or even the database name that you are using for the different environments might change. So that is why we maintain different environment variables file for every environment that we work with, and we are going to be using .env npm package in order to manage all those environment variables files. Express, as you all know, we are going to be using it in order to create REST APIs. JSON Web Token we shall use in order to work with JWT based tokens or implement JWT based authentication. NodeMailer is a package that we shall use in order to send out emails. Why do we need to send out emails? We shall be looking at it in detail in the later part of this course when we will actually build upon the functionalities that make use of it. PG is going to be the driver for Postgres SQL database. Since we shall be using a Postgres database for integrating this application, so we are using PG as the driver for that. And type ORM is our ORM in order to create an abstraction layer over a database layer. Now, in addition to that, one more thing that I want you to take a look at is this environments folder that exists in the root directory of this project. And if I shall expand this environments folder, then I have multiple environments file based on the environment that this application is intended to be run. So currently there are two environments that exist. One is staging, another one is pre-prod. And staging might have its own set of environment variables, and pre-prod might have its own. Currently it is left empty, but when the environment actually comes, you can have the same set of key value pairs, but of course with different values for the same keys depending upon which environment you are currently working. Now I shall expand this src folder, and the very first thing I am going you to take I am going all of you to take over is this index.ts file. So in index.ts file, let's look at all the dependencies or the imports that we are using. So we are using Express in order to create APIs. We are using config from .env so that we can allow this .env package to read environment variables. And in order to read environment variables, we have to specify where our environment variables file actually reside. So we shall be using this config function in order to provide the path to the environment variables file. And we have imported this course so that we can restrict our backend APIs to certain origins. Now we are going to be using this config function to specify the exact file that we are looking at. So here the path is provided as environments folder that exists in the root directory here. And after that, we are looking at a file called .env.process.env.node.env. So whenever you are going to run an application, this node env variable is something that plays an important role, which is going to define the environment where this application is currently running. So it can also vary based on the environments that you are working with. So let's say in staging, you might want to name the node environment with the value staging itself. For prod, you might want to name it prod or production. For pre-prod, you probably want to name it with the pre-prod. And these things can actually be done quite easily. How? If you come to package.json here, you can see I have just one script that exists, that is DAF. This thing is already familiar to all of you, nodemon src index.ts. That means we are trying to run the index.ts file with a tool called nodemon so that whenever we make any changes in the project, the server automatically restarts. But in addition to that, we are saying that the node env variable is set to the value staging. Now, when it is set to the variable staging and when this config function will run, then actually we are looking at a file called .env.staging. So that means this file is going to be picked for loading all the environment variables for this particular application. And we have done some basic configuration here. So since we are working with TypeScript in this particular project, so we are leveraging all the advantages from the TypeScript, like we are creating classes. So it is always beneficial or efficient if we create classes, especially working in a TypeScript environment, so that it helps us in structuring our application code much better. And in this class, we are probably creating some of the methods. One important method that I want you to take a look at is this async init method. This is a function which is going to initiate all the dependencies that this application currently relies on. And ultimately, what it is doing is it is calling this configure method. And if you look at this configure method, it is doing something. What it is doing is it is actually trying to connect to a database. So database connection.getInstance.init, what it is, we shall take a look at it later. But currently, all it is trying to do is to initiate the database connection. And at the end, what we are doing is we are using an IIFE and immediately invoke function expression. And the very first thing, even before starting the server, we are doing to call this init function. So we first created an instance of this server class, and then we invoke this init method, which in turn invoke this configure, which is going to initialize all the dependencies of this application. So the first thing, the database has to load. Then after that, we are using some middlewares like express.json so that we can parse all the JSON type payloads in the post and the put request bodies. We are using CORS. Currently, we are enabling each and every origin in order to access this particular Express app. But it could easily be restricted to any given set of origins that you want to allow. Then I have set up a base router here. That means any APIs that I will write as part of this application, all of those API endpoints are going to be prepended with this URL called /API/v1. In addition to that, we have provided a default error handler here so that whenever there is any error in the entire application, this is the error handler which is going to catch that error and will make sure that your application does not crash while running in the production mode. This is just a log that I have put here just to make sure that the environment variables are being correctly loaded from the respective file. And at last, I am trying to create a server. This is what we are doing in the index.ts file. Now, looking at the config folder, if I expand it, the first file is database connection. In this database connection, what we are doing is, we are trying to follow the singleton pattern here. And that is why we have provided this static method called getInstance, because we want to avoid creating multiple instances of this class so that we don't end up creating multiple connections when we are already working with a database pool of connections. Okay, so this database connection is just going to be responsible for initiating the database connection, which is actually being invoked in the index.ps file. Currently, since we are only working with one database, that's why we are only initiating one database. But it is very probable and very typical in production grade applications where you are probably trying to connect to multiple databases. So in that scenario, you might have some additional code, coming here in this place. Data source is something that we have already looked upon, in the previous or previous to previous lecture. Here we are just providing the configurations of the database that we wish to connect to. And in the entities, what we are doing is, instead of providing specific entities, what we are saying is, or what we are doing is, we are using blob patterns, where we are saying that any file that exists in the entity folder has to be considered as a valid entity for this particular data source, and any file that ends with the extension ts or js. Why we are doing that is something that you will probably get to know more about in the later part of this course. But on an overview level, whenever we work with TypeScript based applications, before deploying those applications, we have to convert that TypeScript code into JavaScript. And when that code is actually converted into JavaScript, remember these entity files will be created with .js extension. So that is why we are allowing the files with TS as well as JS extensions to be loaded for this particular database. We have also set up mail transporter with the help of node mailer, but currently we are not initiating it in our index.ts file like we were doing it for the database connection. uh, when the actual requirement for this particular feature of sending out emails come, then we shall be doing the initialization for this node mailer part as well. Now, the next thing that I want you to take a look at is this routers. In the routers, we have this v1 router, where what we have done is we have created a class called v1 router. So you might be thinking that why v1 router? So in case you want to maintain multiple versions of APIs in the same project, then this version routing is or this versioning of routers is going to allow you to easily do that, because you can anytime create a new router for a different version, say v2, or even a different version called, let's say, v3, and you will be able to work out with the all different versions of the APIs or the application in a single project. So for this particular v1 router, what we are doing is uh, we have written this class, and this router is trying to load some additional routers in turn, and those routers are provided in this v1 folder. So just like we have applied versioning to this router called v1 or v1 router, similarly I have created specific routers in the version folder. So since we are currently working with v1 version, I have put the respective routers in the respective folder, and that is why this job application router, this job posting router, or user router, they are residing in the v1 folder. And when you come to v1 router, we are simply trying to import these routers, and we are prepending all those route implementations with specific keywords. For example, any endpoint that you provide or any controller that you write for user router will be prepended with user. Now remember, this user is already prepended with the the slash API slash v1 part. After that, we have user, and after user, we will have to see that what this user router is going to implement for. So if we go to user router, currently we don't have any endpoint implementation, but as and when we start adding implementation to that, then we will be able to get the perfect or clear path to the endpoint that a user or a front end actually needs to invoke. Okay, so currently this router is just initializing all these specific entities router. So since we are mainly working with three types of entities in this project: user router, job posting, and the job application. So that's why I have created three routers, and each of that router is having the keyword that defines what this router is specifically for, as part of its path. And similarly, all these entity routers are created here. The next thing I want you to take a look at is this middlewares folder, which is completely empty as of now because we don't have any uh, custom middlewares that we have created. But going forward into the course, we shall be creating a middleware for the authentication purpose, so that any request that arrives at the server and that requires uh, you know some type of authentication, or if the API is probably trying to get some protected data or trying to perform some protected action. In that case, we will have to look at whether the request qualifies to perform that particular action, or uh, you know uh, is qualified enough to get the data that is being requested from the request. HTML templates is a folder that we shall make use of for keeping all our HTML templates, since we are going to be using Node Miller package for sending out emails. So while sending out emails, we shall be using the HTML format, and those HTML templates will reside in the HTML templates folder. Errors, if you take a look at it, then we have this error handler class. So this is going to be the custom error handler class that we have created, and we shall be making use of this class very extensively when we start the development for this project. Error response, again, is the class that is going to be the default error handler that we have already initialized in our index.ts file. So if I come back to index.ts, and you see that this default method has come from error response class. And this error response class is created here in this error response.ts file. And then we have this HTTP codes, which simply exports an enum of all the different status codes that a REST API can actually return as part of the response. Apart from that, we have entity folder, which has just the file names or the table names that will actually exist in a database, but the implementation is empty. So I have just created these tables because I have already shown you in the document itself that which all database entities we shall be working with. So user, candidate detail, job application, job posting, and recruiter detail are the 5 entities or tables that we are going to be working. Controllers part also is being maintained with the help of versions. So in the controllers, we have this v1 folder, and inside this v1 folder, we have the controllers that are created for each router. So if we have a router for user, job posting, and job application, similarly, we have a controller for user, job posting, and job application. Currently, there is not much written in any of these controllers, and we shall be starting adding code to these routers and controllers when we begin the actual development for the project. Now, the last thing that I want you to take a look at is this utils folder. So in this utils folder, I have created a utility function for returning the response, just to make sure that all the responses that are being returned from this Express.js based application, they follow a very uniform pattern. So that is why we have created a response generator class for that. And whenever we intend to return a response from an incoming request, we shall be making use of this particular class in order to return back the response. And you can see it has one method called JSON, which is actually calling the similar type of functions that we have already seen before. It calls the status, returns the status that you create this object with, or whatever status you wish to create this object with, along with the data that you wish to provide, as part of the response. So at an overview level, this is a simple, walkthrough of the project structure that we are going to be employing for creating a job portal based application. From the next lecture onwards, we shall be, starting for the registration and the login part of this application, and we shall be filling in all the empty blocks that are kept empty as of now. And in the next set of lectures, we shall try to complete this project with all the features and specifications that we discussed in the beginning of this lecture. So that's all for this lecture. Thanks for watching.